The Zathran squad leader tried to raise his rifle and aim it at the approaching humans, but the weapon felt impossibly heavy, and his arms shook with the effort. He managed to get the barrel pointed in roughly the right direction before his body gave out completely, and he collapsed forward onto his hands and knees. His breathing came in ragged gasps and his vision blurred, and his armor's medical system started flashing warnings about oxygen deprivation and muscle strain and cardiovascular stress. Around him, his entire squad had fallen, and some lay flat on the ground unable to move, and others struggled on hands and knees like injured animals. Corporal Amy Stevens moved forward with the squad medic kit, and she knelt beside the nearest alien and checked for obvious injuries. She was young but well-trained, and had volunteered for this assignment because she wanted to help rather than fight. Captain, these aliens are in serious distress, and I think our atmosphere and gravity are killing them. And if we do not help soon, some of them will die. Ryan made a decision that would change everything. Medical team move in and provide assistance and get these soldiers stabilized, and treat them as casualties, not enemies. Human medics rushed forward and began working on the fallen Zathrans, and they provided oxygen supplements and removed heavy equipment and monitored vital signs. The aliens were too weak to resist and too confused to understand why their enemies were helping them survive. Similar scenes played out in landing zones across the planet, and Zathran forces collapsed under conditions that humans considered normal and everyday. In Beijing and Moscow and London and Tokyo, the same pattern repeated in Alien. Soldiers fell and human forces moved in to provide aid rather than deliver killing blows. Aboard his flagship Vexthor, watched his tactical display dissolve into chaos, and every ground unit reported the same impossible situation, and his soldiers were dying not from enemy weapons but from the planet itself. He slammed his fist against the console, and his voice carried the edge of panic. Retreat immediately and pull all forces back to orbit and abandon equipment if necessary, but get our soldiers off that cursed world. But the retreat was difficult because many warriors could not walk back to their ships under their own power, and they needed assistance. And that assistance came from human soldiers who carried wounded aliens and provided medical support and guided them back to their landing craft. The Zathran science officer stared at the visual feeds showing humans helping their enemies and her skin flushed with confusion. Commander, why are they aiding us, and we came to conquer their world and they should be killing us while we are helpless? Vexthor had no answer because nothing in his military training or his experience had prepared him for an enemy that showed mercy to invaders, and he realized with growing horror that he had made a terrible mistake and attacked something he did not understand. Nicole extended her hand in greeting, and the lead diplomat stared at it for a moment before carefully reaching out to touch her fingers. She noted how the alien moved slowly and cautiously, even in zero gravity, as though expecting some new danger. Welcome to the International Space Station, and I am Captain Nicole Price, and I will be your host during these discussions. The diplomat's translator device processed her words and responded in accented but understandable English. I am Diplomat Jenkar, and we are grateful for this opportunity, and we come with peaceful intentions and genuine regret for our actions. The first meeting lasted 3 hours and covered basic topics like translation protocols and cultural exchange and mutual understanding. Nicole found the aliens intelligent and surprisingly humble, given their military reputation. Jenkar explained that the Zathran Empire had conquered many worlds but had never encountered a species quite like humanity. Your people are unique in the galaxy, and you thrive where others would perish, and you show mercy where others would show cruelty, and we have much to learn from you. Nicole accepted the compliment gracefully, but remained cautious because words were easy and actions would prove true intentions. As the meeting concluded and the Zathran diplomats prepared to return to their ship, Nicole felt a strange mixture of pride and concern. Humanity had passed its first test with an alien species, but she wondered how many more tests would come, and whether Earth would always be so fortunate. She watched the alien shuttle detach and drift away into the darkness, and she thought about how much the world had changed in just a few days, and how much more it would change in the years to come. The news of the failed Zathran invasion spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected, and within days every spacefaring civilization knew about Earth and its unusual inhabitants. The Galactic Federation called an emergency session, and representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered to discuss what this meant for galactic politics. Ambassador Quintel of the Centauri system stood before the assembly, and her forearms gestured emphatically as she spoke. We have a serious situation developing, and a Class 15 Deathworld has produced a spacefaring civilization, and this has never happened before in recorded history. The assembly chamber erupted in confused chatter, and delegates argued among themselves about classifications and protocols. A representative from the Andraxian collective raised his crystalline hand to speak. Surely there must be some mistake, and Class 15 worlds are resource extraction sites and mining operations and nothing more. And no intelligent life can evolve under those conditions. Quintel brought up a holographic display, showing Earth's planetary data, and the numbers spoke for themselves. The gravity reading is accurate, and the atmospheric pressure is confirmed, and the weather patterns are documented, and yet humans not only survive there but thrive there, without any technological assistance. Another delegate stood, and his voice carried skepticism. Perhaps they use genetic modification, or perhaps they live underground, or perhaps our classification system needs review. Quintel shook her head and pulled up video footage from the invasion. Watch how they move and see how they carry their wounded, and observe how they function in conditions that hospitalize trained Zathran soldiers within minutes. The assembly watched in silence as human soldiers ran easily across terrain and lifted heavy equipment and worked for hours in an environment that would kill most of them in less time. Back on Earth, the government decided it was time to understand exactly what made their planet so dangerous to aliens. Dr. Claire Martinez assembled a team of scientists from multiple disciplines, and they began comparing human biology to the limited Zathron medical data they had collected. She sat in her laboratory surrounded by charts and graphs and anatomical diagrams. Our bone density is nearly 3 times higher than the Zathron average, and our muscle fiber composition is completely different, and our cardiovascular system operates at pressures that would rupture their blood vessels. Her colleague, Dr. Stephen Cooper, studied the atmospheric data with growing amazement. We breathe an oxygen concentration that is toxic to most species, and our lungs process this efficiently because we evolved specifically for these conditions. He pointed to a comparison chart showing different species' respiratory requirements. The Zathrans need oxygen, but in much lower concentrations, and their bodies cannot handle the oxidative stress that we experience constantly. Claire added more notes to her report. Our immune systems are also incredibly aggressive because we evolved alongside countless pathogens and parasites and predators, and we have defenses that other species never needed to develop. The research team presented their findings to General Paul Henderson and his staff, and the implications were staggering. General, we are essentially super soldiers by galactic standards, and our normal physical capabilities far exceed what most species can achieve, even with technological enhancement. Paul listened carefully and understood that this information was both an advantage and a potential problem. If other civilizations fear us too much, they might try to eliminate the threat before we become stronger, and if they underestimate us like the Zathrans did, they might attack foolishly and force us to defend ourselves. Commander Helen Brooks attended the briefing and raised a practical concern. We need to establish formal relations with this Galactic Federation, and we need to do it quickly before rumors and fear lead to more invasions. Paul agreed and authorized immediate diplomatic outreach. The Federation responded with cautious optimism and invited Earth to send representatives to their headquarters station in neutral space. Captain Ryan Phillips was selected to lead the human delegation because he had experience with the aliens and had shown good judgment during the invasion. Ryan assembled his team carefully and chose people who could represent humanity's diversity and capability. Lieutenant Sam Hughes was a linguist who had already begun learning basic Zathran and Centauri languages. Sergeant Amy Stevens brought medical expertise and a gentle demeanor that had impressed the alien doctors. Commander Kevin Barnes provided technical knowledge and could interface with alien computer systems. Together, they boarded a prototype Earth spacecraft that had been hastily upgraded with technology shared by friendly Federation members. Not the journey to Federation headquarters took 3 days, and Ryan used the time to prepare his team. Remember, we are representing our entire species, and every action we take will be analyzed and judged. Sam studied his language files and practiced pronunciation. Sir, I have been reviewing Federation protocols, and apparently, most diplomatic meetings are held in low gravity to accommodate different species, and we should prepare for that environment. Amy checked her medical supplies and made sure she had medications that would work on human and alien biology alike. Kevin tested the communication systems and established secure channels back to Earth. Federation headquarters was a massive rotating station that housed thousands of beings from across the galaxy. The human ship docked carefully and Ryan led his team through the airlock into a reception area designed for new arrivals. The gravity was immediately noticeable and felt like walking on the moon, and every step carried them higher than normal. A Centauri guide met them with a translator device hanging from one of her forearms. "Welcome to Federation Station. And I am Guide Pelnara, and I will escort you to the diplomatic quarter, and please move carefully, as the gravity here is set to 1/4 of your planetary standard." Ryan and his team moved with practiced ease, and other species in the corridor stopped to watch as the humans walked normally in conditions that required most visitors to use assistance devices. Pelnara noticed the attention and her skin flushed with embarrassment. "Please forgive the stares, and most species have never seen humans before, and your reputation has preceded you." Amy smiled politely and tried to put the guide at ease. "We understand, and this is new for everyone, and we appreciate your hospitality." They followed Pelnara through winding corridors past shops and restaurants and residential areas, and everywhere they went other beings stopped and stared and whispered. The diplomatic quarter was a series of meeting rooms designed to accommodate various biological needs. Ryan's team was assigned quarters with adjustable gravity and atmospheric controls. Kevin immediately began examining the technology with professional interest. "This is incredibly advanced, and they can simulate almost any planetary environment with these systems." Sam looked out the viewport at the stars beyond. "It is strange to think that we are the unusual ones, and everyone else considers us the dangerous species." Ryan understood the feeling, because he had grown up thinking Earth was normal and only now was learning how wrong that assumption had been. The first official meeting took place in a circular chamber with Ambassador Quintel presiding. She welcomed the human delegation with formal courtesy. "We are pleased to have representatives from Earth join us, and the Federation wishes to establish peaceful relations and mutual understanding." Ryan responded with equal formality. "We come in peace and with hope for friendship and cooperation, and we believe we have much to offer the galactic community." Quintel's expression was difficult to read, but her tone suggested relief. "That is good to hear, because there has been considerable concern about how a warrior species from a Deathworld might behave toward less physically capable civilizations." Lieutenant Sam spoke up with careful diplomacy. "We understand the concern, but humans value cooperation and peace. And we showed this when we helped the Zathron wounded despite their hostile intentions." A delegate from the Vraxian collective responded with obvious skepticism. "You helped them because you could afford to, and they posed no real threat to you, and what happens when you face an enemy who can actually fight back?" The chamber grew tense, and Ryan felt the weight of countless eyes upon him. He chose his words carefully and spoke with quiet conviction. "We helped them because it was the right thing to do, and we have our own long history of war and violence, and we know the cost of hatred and revenge, and we choose to be better than our worst impulses." He paused and looked around the chamber. "Yes, we are physically stronger than many species, and yes, our world is dangerous by your standards, but that does not make us monsters, and it makes us survivors. And survivors understand the value of life." The Vraxian delegate seemed mollified by this response and settled back in his seat. Ambassador Quintel guided the discussion toward practical matters like trade agreements and cultural exchange and security protocols. "The Federation offers membership to any civilization that meets certain technological and social criteria, and Earth appears to qualify, but there are concerns about integration." Sergeant Amy asked the obvious question. "What kind of concerns specifically?" Quintel displayed a holographic image of Earth rotating slowly. "Your planet cannot host diplomatic visits because the environment is lethal to most species, and all meetings must occur in neutral locations, and this is unprecedented but necessary." Commander Kevin suggested a solution that had been discussed back on Earth. "We can construct orbital facilities around our planet designed to accommodate various species, and we can create embassy stations in Federation space, and we are willing to adapt to make cooperation possible." This seemed to reassure many of the delegates, and discussions continued for several hours. By the end of the first meeting, both sides had agreed to continue talks and work toward formal membership. During a break in negotiations, Ryan and his team walked through the station's observation deck and watched ships coming and going from hundreds of worlds. Sam stood beside him and spoke quietly. "Sir, do you think they will ever stop being afraid of us?" Ryan considered the question carefully. "Fear comes from the unknown, and the more they know us, the less they will fear us, but we need to prove ourselves worthy of trust, and that takes time." Amy joined them and looked out at the vast starfield. We also need to remember that we are representing everyone back home, and billions of people whose lives will be affected by what we do here. The weight of responsibility settled over them, but Ryan felt confident in his team and in humanity's ability to rise to this challenge. They had survived on Earth for millions of years and had built civilizations and achieved spaceflight, and now they would prove they could thrive among the stars as well. The galaxy was watching and waiting and judging, and humanity would show them what it meant to be children of a Deathworld who chose peace over violence and cooperation over conquest. The meetings would continue and the negotiations would be difficult and the challenges would be many. But Earth had faced challenges before and always emerged stronger, and this time would be no different. The negotiations between Earth and the Galactic Federation continued for 3 weeks, and every session revealed new challenges and surprising discoveries. Ambassador Quintel found herself genuinely fascinated by the humans and their unique perspective on galactic affairs. She sat across from General Paul Henderson in a private meeting room and decided to share information that most species never learned. General, I need to explain something that will help you understand why your presence has caused such concern. And the Federation has strict classifications for planetary environments, and these classifications determine everything from colonization rights to trade values. Paul leaned forward with interest because he sensed this was important. Please continue, and we want to understand our place in the galaxy. Quintel activated a holographic display showing a scale from 1 to 15. Class 1 worlds are paradise planets with minimal gravity and calm weather and abundant resources, and no dangerous life forms, and most Federation species originated on Class 3 or Class 4 worlds. She moved the display upward through the scale. Class 7 worlds require environmental suits for most species, and Class 10 worlds are considered extremely dangerous and used only for research, outposts, and automated mining. The hologram reached the top of the scale and highlighted Class 15 in red. This is Earth, and this is a classification reserved for worlds so hostile that even robotic equipment frequently fails, and storms can destroy landing craft, and gravity crushes standard construction, and the atmosphere corrodes unprotected materials, and native life forms are universally aggressive. Paul absorbed this information and began to understand why the Zathrons had been so unprepared. You are saying that Earth is literally the most dangerous type of world in your classification system. Quintel nodded with all 4 arms folded in a gesture of affirmation. Not just in our system, but in recorded history, and no Class 15 world has ever produced intelligent life before, and you are an anomaly that defies our understanding of how evolution works. Back on Earth, scientists celebrated this revelation because it explained so much about humanity's relationship with their environment. Dr. Claire Martinez presented her findings to a packed auditorium filled with researchers and military officials. We always wondered why we seemed so robust compared to other mammals, and why our bodies healed quickly, and why we could adapt to almost any climate. And now we know we evolved under the harshest conditions known to galactic science. The audience erupted in applause and questions. One researcher asked about the implications for human space exploration. Dr. Stephen Cooper answered that question with enthusiasm. We can survive in environments that would require other species to use extensive life support, and we can colonize worlds that the Federation considers uninhabitable, and this gives us enormous strategic and economic advantages. Commander Helen Brooks saw both opportunity and danger in these revelations. She called a meeting with Earth's top military leaders to discuss security implications. Gentlemen and ladies, we need to consider that our physical advantages might make us a target, and there will be species who fear us, and species who want to exploit us, and species who want to eliminate us before we become too powerful. Admiral George Carter spoke up from the end of the table. We also need to consider that the Federation might try to limit our expansion, and they could argue that giving Deathworld humans access to more habitable planets would be unfair to other species. The concern proved justified when the Federation proposed a treaty that included restrictions on human colonization. Captain Ryan Phillips read the proposal with growing frustration. They want to limit us to 10 colony worlds in the 1st century, and they want those worlds approved by Federation committees, and they want human populations monitored for aggressive expansion. Lieutenant Sam Hughes examined the fine print and found even more concerning clauses. Sir, they also want genetic samples from human volunteers, and they claim it is for medical research, but this could easily be weaponized against us. Ryan brought these concerns to Ambassador Quintel during their next meeting, and his tone was diplomatic but firm. Ambassador, we appreciate the Federation's caution, but these restrictions are unacceptable, and we will not submit to limitations that do not apply to other member species. Quintel had expected this response, and her skin flushed with the blue color that indicated stress. Captain, you must understand the Federation's position, and many member species are terrified of humans, and they see you as potential conquerors, and these restrictions are designed to ease those fears. Sergeant Amy Stevens spoke up with genuine emotion. We saved Zathran lives when we could have let them die, and we have shown nothing but peaceful intentions, and how much more do we need to prove before we are trusted? A Vraxian delegate who had joined the meeting responded coldly. You showed mercy once under circumstances that favored you, and that does not erase millions of years of evolutionary pressure that shaped you into apex predators. The accusation hung in the air, and Ryan felt his temper rise but controlled it carefully. He stood and walked to the viewport, showing the vast starfield beyond. Let me tell you what I see when I look at those stars, and I see possibilities and opportunities and potential friends and trading partners and shared knowledge, and I do not see conquest or domination or empire. He turned back to face the delegates. Yes, we evolved on a harsh world, and yes, we are physically capable, but we are also artists and poets and teachers and healers, and we value life and beauty and truth, and if you cannot see that, then you are blinded by your own fears. The Vraxian delegate seemed taken aback by the passionate response, and Quintel used the moment to propose a compromise. Perhaps we can start with a probationary membership, and Earth would have limited voting rights initially but could earn full membership through demonstrated peaceful behavior. Ryan consulted quietly with his team and then nodded slowly. We can accept probationary status if the terms are reasonable and if there is a clear path to full membership, but we will not accept permanent second-class status. Over the next several days, the human delegation negotiated fiercely for better terms. Commander Kevin Barnes proved invaluable because his technical expertise helped identify unfair clauses hidden in complex legal language. He found provisions that would have given the Federation access to Earth's communication networks and military databases. Sir, this is espionage disguised as treaty language, and they want unrestricted monitoring of our planetary defenses. Ryan brought this to Quintel immediately and demanded an explanation. The ambassador looked genuinely embarrassed and admitted that certain factions within the Federation had inserted those clauses without her knowledge. I apologize, and this was inappropriate, and I will ensure these provisions are removed. Ryan appreciated her honesty but made his position clear. Ambassador, we are willing to be transparent about our capabilities and intentions, but we will not surrender our sovereignty or our security, and if the Federation cannot accept us as equals, then we will pursue our own path among the stars. This declaration sparked intense debate within the Federation leadership. Some argued that Earth should be isolated and contained, while others recognized the value of having humans as allies rather than enemies. A senior counselor from the Andraxian collective made a persuasive argument. If we reject Earth, they will develop independently and potentially build their own alliance network, and they could become a rival power block. But if we welcome them, we can guide their development and benefit from their unique strengths. The final treaty took shape over many long sessions and included safeguards for both sides. Earth would enter the Federation as a probationary member with voting rights on non-military matters. Human expansion would be monitored but not restricted beyond the normal colonization protocols that applied to all species. The Federation would establish an embassy station in Earth orbit, but would not require genetic samples or unrestricted surveillance. In exchange, Earth agreed to share certain technologies and participate in joint research projects and contribute to Federation security operations. General Paul Henderson reviewed the final document with his legal team and grudgingly admitted it was fair. We did not get everything we wanted, but we avoided the traps and maintained our independence and gained access to galactic trade and knowledge. He signed the treaty with Earth's official seal and felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Captain Ryan Phillips witnessed the signing ceremony along with delegates from hundreds of worlds, and he felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. Ambassador Quintel spoke formally as she accepted Earth's treaty documents. The Galactic Federation welcomes humanity as probationary members, and we look forward to learning from you as you learn from us, and may this mark the beginning of a long and peaceful relationship. The assembled delegates offered the traditional gesture of welcome, and Ryan responded with a human handshake that Quintel accepted gracefully. The ceremony concluded with a reception, where humans mingled awkwardly with aliens who still seemed uncertain about these Deathworld newcomers. Lieutenant Sam Hughes found himself in conversation with a young Centauri scholar who studied evolutionary biology. She asked questions about Earth with scientific curiosity. Is it true that your planet has predators large enough to kill humans easily? Sam nodded and described lions and tigers and bears and sharks. The scholar's eyes widened with each example. And you simply coexist with these creatures and do not exterminate them. Sam explained the concept of conservation and ecological balance, and the scholar seemed amazed that apex predators would protect other apex predators. Sergeant Amy Stevens talked with Federation medical personnel and shared information about human immune systems and healing capabilities. A doctor from the Polarian species examined her tricorder readings with disbelief. Your white blood cell count would be considered a severe infection in my species, but for you this is normal. Amy explained how humans fought off countless diseases and infections throughout their lives. The Polarian doctor made extensive notes. This could revolutionize our understanding of immunology, and your species may hold the key to treating conditions we thought incurable. As the reception ended and the human delegation prepared to return to their quarters, Ryan reflected on how far they had come in just a few weeks. Earth had gone from isolation to probationary Federation membership, and humanity had learned they were both feared and needed. The path forward would be challenging, but Ryan believed humans were ready for it. They had survived countless challenges on their Deathworld home, and they would survive and thrive among the stars as well. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders and dangers and opportunities, and humanity was finally ready to take its place among the civilizations of known space. 6 months had passed since Earth joined the Galactic Federation, and humanity was learning to navigate the complex web of galactic politics and trade and cultural exchange. Captain Nicole Price commanded the newly constructed Earth Embassy Station that orbited peacefully above the planet and served as the primary meeting point between humans and alien visitors. She walked through the station's observation deck and watched a Centauri transport ship dock carefully at the main airlock. Her executive officer, Lieutenant Jake Morrison, stood beside her reviewing the day's schedule. Captain, we have 3 delegations arriving today, and a Vraxian trade mission and a scientific team from the Polarian Consortium and a group of students from the Andraxian Collective who want to study human culture. Nicole smiled because the fear and suspicion that had dominated early interactions was slowly giving way to genuine curiosity and cooperation. Show them all the courtesy and comfort we can provide, and make sure environmental controls are set correctly for each species, and let us show them that humans can be gracious hosts. The Vraxian delegation arrived first, and their leader, Ambassador Drexnor, had been one of the most vocal critics of Human Federation membership. Nicole greeted him formally in the low-gravity reception area. Ambassador, welcome to Earth Embassy Station, and we are honored by your presence. Drexnor's crystalline face reflected the station lights as he studied the human captain. I confess I came with reservations, and my species has long feared what Deathworld inhabitants might do with access to galactic resources, but recent reports suggest my concerns may have been premature. Nicole gestured for him to follow her to the conference room. We understand the fear, and we would be cautious, too, if the situation were reversed, and all we ask is the chance to prove ourselves through our actions rather than your assumptions. The trade negotiations went surprisingly well, and the Vraxians needed rare metals that were common on Earth and could offer advanced medical technology in exchange. Drexnor examined samples of titanium and platinum with appreciation. These materials are difficult to mine on most worlds because of the extreme conditions required, but your people extract them routinely. Nicole explained that Earth's harsh environment actually made resource extraction easier for humans. Our mining equipment is built to withstand enormous pressures and extreme temperatures, and what you consider difficult, we consider standard industrial practice. Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, a different kind of exchange was taking place. Dr. Claire Martinez hosted a group of alien scientists who wanted to study Earth's ecosystem, despite the dangers. They wore full environmental suits that regulated gravity and atmospheric pressure and protected them from the elements. She led them through a carefully controlled nature preserve in Africa and pointed out various species. That is an African elephant, and it weighs approximately 6,000 kilograms and has the intelligence to use tools and recognize itself in mirrors and mourn its dead. The lead Polarian scientist, Dr. Vilmara, watched the massive creature through her suit's protective visor. Such a large animal would collapse under its own weight on most Federation worlds, and how does it move so easily? Claire explained the relationship between bone density and muscle strength and gravitational adaptation. Evolution on Earth favored size and strength, because our gravity demanded it and animals either adapted or went extinct. She pointed to a pride of lions resting in the shade. Those are apex predators, and they hunt in coordinated packs and can take down prey much larger than themselves. Velmara made extensive notes on her recording device, and humans coexist with these predators without fear. Claire corrected that assumption quickly. We have healthy respect and caution, but not paralyzing fear. And we learned long ago that understanding animal behavior keeps us safer than trying to eliminate every dangerous species. The alien scientists seemed amazed by this philosophy, because most civilizations had eliminated dangerous fauna from their homeworlds early in their development. Back on the embassy, Station Lieutenant Sam Hughes conducted a cultural exchange program with the Andraxian students. The young alien sat in a specially designed classroom with adjustable gravity, set to 1/3 Earth standard as a compromise. Sam showed them recordings of human art and music and literature. This is called jazz, and it is a musical form that originated from the blending of different cultural traditions on Earth. The complex rhythms and improvisational nature of the music fascinated the students. One student raised a tentacle-like appendage to ask a question. Why do humans create so much art when your world is so dangerous, and should you not focus all energy on survival? Sam considered the question carefully. We create art because of the danger and not in spite of it, and beauty and creativity give meaning to survival and help us remember why life is worth fighting for. The student seemed puzzled by this answer, but recorded it for further study. Commander Helen Brooks traveled to Federation headquarters for a Security Council meeting where human participation was being debated. The recent treaty gave Earth limited involvement in military matters, but several incidents had demonstrated that human capabilities might be needed. A pirate fleet had been raiding Federation shipping lanes, and traditional security forces struggled to engage them effectively. Admiral George Carter presented Earth's proposal to assist with the pirate problem. We can deploy fast attack craft with human crews who can withstand the high acceleration maneuvers needed to intercept these raiders. The Centauri security minister objected immediately. Allowing human military forces to operate in Federation space sets a dangerous precedent. And what if you decide to use those forces against Federation members? Helen responded with patience she had developed over months of similar objections. We are proposing a joint operation with Federation oversight, and human ships would operate alongside your forces and under your command. Structure, and this is cooperation and not conquest. After extensive debate, the Council approved a limited trial. Operation and Earth dispatched 3 patrol ships under the command of Captain Ryan Phillips. He led his small fleet to the contested region of space and coordinated with a Vraxian security squadron. The Vraxian commander was skeptical at first, but quickly recognized the value of human capabilities. Your ships can accelerate at rates that would kill my crew, and you can maintain pursuit through asteroid fields that we must navigate. Cautiously, the first engagement with pirates demonstrated exactly why human involvement was valuable. The pirate ships attempted their usual tactic of high-speed retreat into a debris field, but Ryan's ships followed easily. The human pilots handled crushing G-forces with only mild discomfort, while their alien counterparts would have been rendered unconscious. Within hours, the pirate fleet was captured and no shots needed to be fired. The Vraxian commander sent a formal commendation to Earth and admitted that human assistance had been decisive. News of the successful operation spread quickly through the Federation, and attitudes toward humanity began shifting noticeably. Captain Nicole Price noticed the change during her regular diplomatic meetings. Delegates who had been cold and formal now engaged in genuine conversation and asked questions about Earth culture and human capabilities. Ambassador Quintel visited the embassy station and spoke with Nicole privately. I want you to know that many of us believed from the beginning that humans would be valuable members, and we are pleased to see that belief confirmed. Nicole appreciated the sentiment, but remained realistic about the challenges ahead. We still face prejudice and fear from some species, and there are those who will never accept us fully. Quintel nodded with understanding. That is true of any new member species, and the Vraxians were mistrusted for decades. After joining, and the Polarians faced discrimination for their unusual biology and acceptance. takes time and patience. On Earth, preparations were underway for humanity's first independent colony world. The planet designated as New Hope was a Class 9 world with high gravity and an aggressive ecosystem, and the Federation had offered it to Earth because no other species wanted it. General Paul Henderson reviewed the colonization plans with satisfaction. This world would challenge most species, but our people will thrive there, and we can build a successful colony that demonstrates human resilience and adaptability. The first wave of colonists included families and scientists and engineers and teachers, and they departed Earth aboard newly constructed transport ships built with both human and Federation technology. Among them was Sergeant Ben Taylor, who had served during the Zathron invasion and now volunteered for civilian colonial service. He stood on the transport's observation deck and watched Earth shrink behind them. His daughter Lucy stood beside him with excitement in her young eyes. "Dad, will the new world be scary?" Ben smiled and put his hand on her shoulder. "It will be challenging, but we are humans, and challenges are what we do best." Dr. Stephen Cooper led the scientific team assigned to study New Hope's ecosystem before full colonization began. He established a base camp on the planet's surface and immediately began cataloging the local flora and fauna. His assistant Carl Hughes discovered a predator species that hunted in packs and used sophisticated tactics. "Doctor, these creatures show problem-solving abilities comparable to earth wolves, and they may be the dominant species here." Stephen examined the data with fascination. "Then we will learn to coexist with them just as we learned to coexist with wolves on Earth." Back at Federation headquarters, the Council voted on whether to grant Earth full membership ahead of the planned probationary period. The debate was intense, but ultimately the human track record spoke for itself. They had contributed to security operations and shared valuable resources and demonstrated peaceful intentions repeatedly. Ambassador Quintel cast the deciding vote in favor, and Earth became a full member of the Galactic Federation, with all rights and responsibilities. Captain Ryan Phillips received the news while on patrol and felt a surge of pride. He transmitted a message to Earth and to the embassy station and to the New Hope colony. "Today, humanity takes its rightful place among the stars, and we have proven that strength and compassion can coexist and that Deathworld survivors can be builders and not destroyers, and this is only the beginning of our journey." Commander Helen Brooks stood in the embassy station's observation deck and looked down at Earth with its swirling clouds and vast oceans and deadly beauty. She thought about how far humanity had come from that first terrifying day when alien ships descended through the atmosphere. They had faced invasion and showed mercy and earned respect through action rather than words. The galaxy had learned that humans were formidable but not monsters, and capable but not cruel, and strong but not bullies. Lieutenant Jake Morrison joined her at the viewport. "Commander, do you think the fear will ever completely disappear?" Helen considered the question and gave an honest answer. "Some fear will always remain because we are different and we come from a world that terrifies them. But fear with respect is better than fear with hostility, and we can live with that." The station's lights reflected off Earth's surface and created a beautiful display against the darkness of space. Across the galaxy, the story of Earth spread and became legend. The Deathworld that produced warriors who showed mercy, and the species that thrived in hell and chose peace, and the humans who changed galactic understanding of what was possible. Commander Vexthor heard the stories in his retirement and felt both shame at his failure and pride that he had learned from it. He had written extensively about his experience, and his writings became required reading in military academies across the Zathron Empire. The future remained uncertain because the galaxy was vast and full of unknown dangers and potential conflicts, but humanity faced it with confidence born from surviving the ultimate challenge of their homeworld. Earth would always be a Class 15 Deathworld, and humans would always be its children, and that combination would shape galactic history for generations to come. The invasion had failed, and the invaders had learned, and humanity had emerged not as conquerors, but as partners, and the galaxy was better for it. Commander Helen Brooks stood in the Central Command facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains and watched dozens of screens showing alien ships retreating back into orbit. She was 53 years old, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, and 3 decades of military service had taught her when to fight and when to talk. The aliens had invaded Earth with overwhelming force, but their own biology had betrayed them, and now they sat in orbit, probably confused and certainly weakened. Her communications officer looked up from his station with anticipation in his eyes. "Commander, do we pursue or do we attempt contact?" Helen considered the options carefully because humanity had just learned they were not alone in the universe, and the next few decisions could determine whether Earth entered galactic society as a friend or an enemy. "Get me a communication channel to their flagship and use every frequency we have until something works." Lieutenant Kevin Barnes was a technical genius who had spent his career breaking encryption and hacking foreign systems, and now he turned those skills toward alien technology. He worked his console with practiced efficiency and cycled through radio frequencies and laser communication bands and even old television broadcasts until finally, one of the alien ships responded. The main screen flickered and then resolved into an image of Commander Vexthor sitting in what was clearly a command chair on an alien bridge. The Zathran commander looked shaken, and his usual military bearing had cracked under the weight of catastrophic failure. Helen stood straight and kept her voice calm and professional. "I am Commander Helen Brooks of the Earth Defense Forces, and your invasion of our planet has failed not because we defeated you in battle, but because our world itself rejected you." She paused to let that sink in before continuing. "I am going to ask you one time, and you need to answer carefully because lives depend on your choice, and do you want to talk or do you want to lose more?" "Soldiers," Vexthor stared at the human commander and tried to process what had happened. He had lost nearly 20% of his ground forces in less than 1 hour, and not a single soldier had died from enemy fire. They had been killed by gravity and air pressure and atmospheric conditions that the humans apparently lived in every single day, without any mechanical assistance. His pride as a military commander warred with the reality of his situation, and finally reality won. What kind of species evolves on a world with such extreme conditions, and how do you survive without power armor or genetic modifications? Helen almost smiled but kept her expression neutral. "We call our planet Earth, and we survive here because we were born here and we evolved here and we know nothing else." She gestured to the aide standing beside her, who was drinking coffee and reading reports as though alien first contact was just another day at the office. "Every human you see can function normally in the conditions that nearly killed your soldiers, and we consider this environment comfortable and safe." Vexthor felt something cold settle in his chest because he was beginning to understand just how badly he had miscalculated. The negotiation that followed was brief and direct. Helen offered medical assistance for the Zathron wounded still aboard their ships, and Vexthor accepted because his own medical staff was overwhelmed. Human doctors and medics were transported up to the alien vessels in shuttles, and they brought equipment and supplies and expertise. Dr. Claire Martinez led the medical team, and she was fascinated by the alien biology even as she worked to save lives. She was 41 years old and had spent her career studying rare diseases and unusual medical conditions, and now she examined patients from another world entirely. The Zathron wounded lay in medical bays designed for lower gravity, and Dr. Martinez had to adapt her techniques constantly. She examined one soldier whose breathing was shallow and labored even in the ship's thin atmosphere. "This patient is suffering from oxygen toxicity and severe muscle strain and possible bone stress fractures from supporting too much weight." She administered medication and adjusted the atmospheric mix in his chamber and monitored his vital signs. Her assistant nurse Carl Hughes watched with amazement as alien physiology responded to human medicine in unexpected ways. "Doctor, their cellular structure is completely different, but somehow the anti-inflammatory drugs are working." Claire nodded as she made notes on her tablet. "Life finds similar solutions to similar problems regardless of where it evolves, and pain is pain, and inflammation is inflammation, even if the biology is alien." She moved to the next patient and the next and worked for hours without rest. The Zathron medical staff watched with a mixture of gratitude and unease because these humans moved easily in conditions that would exhaust most species, and they worked tirelessly and showed genuine compassion for soldiers who had come to conquer their world. Back on Earth, the government struggled to manage the biggest story in human history. President Andrew Palmer addressed the nation from the Oval Office, and his speech was broadcast worldwide. "My fellow citizens, today we learned we are not alone in the universe, and we faced an invasion force from the stars, and we prevailed not through violence, but through the simple fact of who we are and where we come from." He paused and looked directly into the camera. "We showed restraint when we could have shown aggression, and we offered help when we could have taken revenge, and this is who we are as a species, and this is what makes us human." The reaction across Earth was mixed with some people celebrating humanity's strength, while others feared what might come next. Social media exploded with theories and speculation and amateur footage of the alien landing. News networks ran constant coverage, and experts who had been conspiracy theorists yesterday were now considered visionaries. But in military installations around the world, preparations continued because one failed invasion did not mean Earth was safe. General Paul Henderson gathered his senior staff in a secure conference room and spread tactical maps across the table. We need to assume more aliens will come, and some might be hostile and some might be curious, and we need to be ready for both. He pointed to orbital trajectories and defensive positions. I want every satellite network upgraded, and every radar station enhanced, and every military base on full alert until we understand what we are dealing with. Colonel Lisa Grant took notes quickly, and her strategic mind was already planning defensive scenarios. Sir, we also need to consider that we just demonstrated something important, and we showed that Earth is not an easy target and word will spread. The general nodded slowly. That could work in our favor or against us depending on who hears the story. His chief of staff, Major Ben Taylor, spoke up from the end of the table. Sir, we also help their wounded, and that sends a message too, and it says, we are not monsters even when attacked. Paul considered this and recognized the wisdom in it. Make sure that message gets included in any official communications with the aliens, and we want them to know we can be friends or we can be a problem, but the choice is theirs, aboard. The Zathron flagship Vexthor composed a report to the Empire's High Command, and every word felt like an admission of failure. The planet designated as Target 739 is unsuitable for invasion, and the indigenous population possesses natural adaptations that make them formidable opponents. He deleted that line and started again. The humans of Earth are a warrior species evolved in extreme conditions, and any military action against their homeworld is inadvisable. That was better, but still did not capture the full truth, so he tried once more. We attacked a Deathworld, and the natives not only defeated us but showed us mercy, and I recommend immediate diplomatic contact and formal apology. His second-in-command read the report over his shoulder, and her skin turned pale blue with shock. Commander, this will ruin your career, and the High Command will demand explanations. Vexthor signed the report with his official seal and transmitted it anyway. My career is already over, and I led soldiers into a death trap because I was arrogant and ignorant, and now I must face the consequences and ensure no other commander makes the same mistake. The response from High Command came swiftly, and it was not kind, but Vexthor accepted his reprimand with dignity because he knew he deserved worse. On Earth, Commander Helen Brooks received a new transmission from the Zathron flagship, and this time it was an official statement. The Zathron Empire wishes to formally apologize for the unprovoked invasion of Earth, and we acted without full knowledge of your world's nature, and we request permission to open diplomatic channels. Helen read the message twice and then called her superiors to discuss the response. Within hours, the decision came down from the highest levels of government, and Earth would accept the apology and agree to talks. The location chosen for the first official diplomatic meeting was the International Space Station, which had been hastily expanded to accommodate alien visitors. Captain Nicole Price was selected to host the initial meeting, and she had been an astronaut for 7 years and was comfortable in zero gravity. She floated in the conference module and waited as a Zathron shuttle approached and docked with careful precision. The airlock cycled, and 3 Zathron diplomats entered, wearing special suits that regulated their environment. The Zathron Empire had crushed 14 star systems in less than 1 galactic year, and their commanders believed nothing could stand against their military strength. Their ships were fast, and their weapons turned entire cities into ash within minutes. Every species they met either surrendered immediately or died fighting a battle they could never win. Commander Vexthor stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the holographic display show another primitive world spinning slowly in the darkness of space. This planet orbited a common yellow star in an unremarkable section of the galaxy, and the initial scan showed it had liquid water and a breathable atmosphere, and millions of life forms scattered across its surface. The science officer approached with her data tablet glowing softly in her 3-fingered hands. She was young for her position but brilliant, and her skin flickered with the nervous purple color that her species showed when worried. Commander, this planet shows unusual readings, and the gravity is almost double our standard, and the atmospheric pressure is extremely high, and the weather patterns are violent and unpredictable. Vexthor barely glanced at the report because he had heard similar warnings before, and every time his forces had adapted and conquered anyway. We have defeated enemies on high, gravity worlds before, and this will be no different. And deploy the full invasion fleet immediately. What Vexthor did not know was that this planet had a designation in the Galactic Federation archives as Earth, and it carried a Class 15 Deathworld rating, which was the highest danger classification possible. The Federation had discovered humanity decades earlier, but had chosen to observe from a safe distance and never make direct contact. They watched these strange bipedal creatures thrive in conditions that would kill most spacefaring species within hours, and they documented everything with a mixture of fascination and horror. Federation scientists had written extensive reports about how humans survived constant exposure to a crushing gravitational field and how they breathed an atmosphere so thick with oxygen it would be toxic to many species, and how they endured temperature swings that ranged from boiling to freezing depending on their location. But the Zathrans had never joined the Federation, and they never read those reports, and now they were about to learn a lesson that would cost them dearly. The invasion fleet consisted of 200 warships and 50 troop carriers, and enough soldiers to occupy a dozen major population centers. Vexthor had used smaller forces to conquer entire civilizations, so he felt confident this primitive world would fall within a single planetary rotation. The ships entered the atmosphere in perfect formation, and their hulls glowed red from the friction, and their sensors locked onto the largest cities below. On Earth, a young officer named Jake Morrison sat at his console in the Pacific Defense Grid, monitoring routine satellite traffic, when every alarm in the facility started screaming at once. He was 28 years old and had trained for exactly this scenario in countless drills, but never truly believed it would happen in his lifetime. His hands moved quickly across the controls, bringing up visual feeds and tracking data and threat assessments. Sergeant Lisa Grant sat 3 stations down, and her voice cut through the chaos with practiced calm. "Sir, we have multiple unknown contacts entering atmosphere over all major continents, and they are not ours, and they do not match any known aircraft profiles from any nation." Jake felt his mouth go dry, but his training took over, and he reached for the communications panel. "Sound Global Alert Level 1 and get me a direct line to Commander Helen Brooks at Central Command, and transmit all tracking data to every military installation worldwide." Within 60 seconds, the alert had reached every corner of the planet, and defense forces went to full readiness, and civilians in major cities received emergency broadcasts telling them to shelter in place. The news networks picked up the story immediately, and within minutes the entire human population knew they were not alone in the universe, and that whoever had just arrived had not bothered to say hello before sending an invasion force. The first Zathron dropship descended through thick clouds over New York City and landed in Central Park with a thunderous impact that shook the ground and sent frightened civilians running in all directions. The massive rear ramp lowered with a hiss of hydraulics, and a squad of Zathron warriors emerged into the afternoon sunlight. They stood 7 feet tall in their combat armor and carried plasma rifles that could punch through steel, and their helmets displayed targeting data and tactical information. The squad leader raised one clawed hand and signaled his soldiers to advance and secure the perimeter. They managed 3 steps before something went terribly wrong. The squad leader felt as though an invisible giant had placed both hands on his shoulders and was pressing down with immense force. His knees buckled slightly and his breathing became labored, and the rifle in his hand suddenly felt like it weighed 3 times what it should. Around him, his soldiers experienced the same problem, and several dropped to one knee, struggling to remain upright. "This is wrong," the squad leader gasped into his communication system, "and the gravity here is much stronger than the initial readings. Suggested and request immediate assistance. Private." Danny Cole lay prone on a rooftop 4 blocks away and watched the aliens through his rifle scope. He was part of a quick response team that had been running exercises nearby when the alert came through. His spotter lay beside him with a rangefinder and a radio connection to their command post. Danny keyed his mic and spoke quietly. "Command, we have visual on hostiles in Central Park, and they appear to be having difficulty moving, and several have fallen, and they look like the gravity is affecting them." The response came through his earpiece in the calm, professional voice of Commander Helen Brooks, who had taken control of the entire Eastern Seaboard Defense Network. "Hold your fire and observe only, and let us see what they do next. What they did was struggle and fail and suffer. The Zathran warriors had evolved on a world where gravity was barely half of Earth's crushing pull, and their bodies and their armor and their weapons were all designed for those lighter conditions. Here on Earth, every movement required twice the effort, and their muscles screamed in protest, and their power armor whined and groaned as its servos fought to compensate for the unexpected load. The atmospheric pressure was another problem they had not anticipated, because their homeworld had thin air at low pressure and Earth's dense, oxygen-rich atmosphere pressed against their bodies and made every breath feel like drowning. Captain Ryan Phillips led a Marine unit that approached the landing site on foot, and his squad moved easily through the streets because they had grown up in this gravity and breathed this air since birth. They carried standard assault rifles and body armor, and nothing that would seem particularly advanced to the aliens. But they moved with confidence and purpose. Ryan had served 2 tours overseas and had seen combat, and had earned his rank through skill and dedication, and now he was walking toward first contact with an alien species. He raised his megaphone, and his voice echoed across the park. "Attention alien forces, you are in violation of Earth's sovereign territory, and you will power down your weapons immediately and prepare for dialogue."